If you're trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed with fertility advice, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, your fertility podcast and antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist, teacher and campaigner for better fertility education. This podcast aims to empower and inform you about your menstrual cycle and fertility. It's basically all that information you didn't get in sex ed at school, with the aim of improving your understanding of your reproductive health and optimizing your fertility. Before we get stuck into today's episode, I'm just popping in to let you know that if you're about to start IVF or you're going through it, you may want to come and join our fertility community support group. It has lots of webinars and information related to IVF support and preparation. And we have a monthly drop-in with our fertility coach for a listening ear with a group of people who really understand where you're at. It's completely free to join and the link is in the show notes. And if this episode is helpful, please pass it on. Hello, it's lovely to have you here today. I'm sat opposite lovely Bella Shallcross, who is an acupuncture practitioner in our team. And we are here today to talk about acupuncture specifically for IVF, because the vast majority of our work in clinic is supporting obviously people with their fertility, but a lot of our work is around IVF preparation and support through an IVF cycle. So I thought it would be lovely to have Bella here to talk about it and we can discuss it between the two of us. So Bella, would you like to introduce yourself and say a little bit about yourself and how long have you been in the team? Because I can't remember.
So I joined your team about a year and a half ago now, maybe just under a year and a half. And I've been practicing acupuncture for about 5 years. 5 years. And I went to a uni in Reading, the same one as you, called the College of Integrated Chinese Medicine, which is a mixture of traditional Chinese medicine and 5-element acupuncture. And then a year after I graduated, I did a diploma in gynecology, fertility and obstetrics at that same uni. And then now I'm doing an advanced level diploma in fertility acupuncture.
Okay, so you are well placed to talk to us about IVF. What I'm always interested, Bella, with you is that you are quite unique. Well, not unique, but you are in the minority of acupuncturists, in that most acupuncturists I've ever known usually go into acupuncture as a second or a third career. And often people have, two careers alongside each other. But you trained straight out of, was it out of school or out? You haven't got another degree. You went
No.
straight into acupuncture. How old were you when you started your training to be an acupuncturist?
I was 19, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, 19. I know.
well,
They weren't
so
going to let
how?
me in because they don't normally take under 21s.
So
But
how did you get in then?
um, I think I basically tried to prove to them that I had enough life experience and had been through situations that, because their worry was that I wouldn't be able to talk to people that had been through the things that are quite intense in life, because a lot of our job is about talking to people who've had quite hard life experiences. So I just tried to kind of explain to them that I had had life experiences that I felt gave me the, I guess, backing that I could use on other people.
Yeah. So was there a particular thing that drove you to choose acupuncture? Had you been having acupuncture yourself?
Well, so I did a gap year and I went to America for a bit and I worked for a publishing company and did the whole kind of office life thing, and it really wasn't for me. And then I came back to the UK and I got hay fever for the first time. And somebody told me to try acupuncture for it. And if I'm completely honest, I was a complete skeptic, didn't think it would do anything for me. And then it was gone after about 3 sessions. So I
Wow.
went to the library, took some books out, and yeah, I was just really fascinated. Yeah. So my dad's a really interesting man in that he's very sciencey, but he's always had a bit of a passion for kind of alternative stuff as well. Like he does transcendental meditation and all of that kind of thing. And so acupuncture felt like a really nice mixture of that, because it's got all, it's been around for millennia, so it's got really old traditional roots, but there's quite a lot of interesting sciencey stuff coming out about it as well. So it just felt like a really nice merging of the two. And then I always knew that I wanted to work with people and yeah, it just felt like a really interesting way to work with people. And it was something that I really wanted to learn about and could see myself committing to 3.5 years of studying it because I was really intrigued.
So are you the youngest person to graduate from Kickham then? Do you
No,
hold that
there's one
title?
that's like 2 months younger than me that really annoyed
No.
me. I'm close. I'm close.
So is there any reason why you kind of have a special interest in women's health and fertility?
Again, it felt like another kind of stars aligning thing. My first patient in the student clinic was a woman trying to get pregnant, and she got pregnant really quickly. I mean, yeah, she was really healthy and everything, but she got pregnant really quickly, and it was just really cool. It was just really exciting. And then she stayed. I basically saw her from the start of my training in the student clinic to the end because she got pregnant so early, and then we had another 9 months, and then she came in with the baby at the end, and it was just a really nice situation. And then a lot of my other patients in the student clinic were kind of more gynecological stuff, and it was just really interesting. And then I think a big part for me was that there is such a lack of education for women in
Mm.
that part of health. And so to be able to really learn my stuff and to be a voice or be somebody that women can ask questions and get answers about just felt like a real privilege and something that I really felt passionate about doing.
Yeah, that really resonates with me as well, that it's not just the working clinic, is it? It's not just the acupuncture. It's the whole package of education, support, care, listening. It's just so many other things apart from the needles is what I always think.
Exactly.
So let's talk about IVF. So why do you think acupuncture is so popular when people are going through IVF? Because I believe that it is the number one, I hate the word alternative, the number one complementary therapy used alongside IVF. So why do you think that is the case?
Well, it's interesting because they recommend us now, don't they? The IVF
Yeah,
clinics. They
quite
recommend
a lot of the
acupuncture.
clinics do. Yeah, I mean, I know in London they do. I don't know about the NHS clinics, I have to say, but I
Right.
know most of, in fact, all of the private clinics in the south do.
Right. Yeah, I think the Cambridge ones do as well, as far
Do
as I'm
they?
aware.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I think there's a bunch of different reasons. I mean, I think partly that fact that there's some kind of more scientific evidence coming through all the time about how acupuncture can help IVF. I think that's a big part. I think that, yeah, there's lots of different answers to this, really. So I think that because it can be such a stressful time and acupuncture at the very least, what it's going to do is regulate your nervous system. If you are stressed, you're going to leave feeling less stressed because once you put those needles in, your body switches from the fight or flight to the rest and digest. You can hear it most of the time. Once you put needles in, people's stomachs will start to gurgle, and that's a real sign that that switch is happening. Um, and once you're in the rest and digest, your reproductive system is kind of allowed to be looked after as well because you're not in that fight and flight and everything has not been put on the back burner anymore. So I think that's a big part. Um, and then I think, if you look at the bones of it, the reproductive system is a vascular system. And if you put needles around that system, you're creating a micro trauma. Your body is going to send blood to that system, which is going to regulate the uterine and the ovarian blood flow and then encourage your follicular and endometrial development, which are all generally quite crucial depending on what kind of situation you've got, but generally quite crucial to the IVF process. Then I guess also, we can, with our needles, regulate that hypothalamic function. So it's going to help all your hormones, the menstrual hormones, and help all of that. And then, yeah, again, it's going to help with your neurotransmitters. So your serotonin and your dopamine are going to be better. Your anything that's out of whack is basically going to be regulated by our needles. And then I think a really important one that is often forgotten always is the sperm. If we're putting needles around like the lower abdomen or the legs of a man, it's going to help the blood flow to the testes, which is going to help the semen again. So I think there's a bunch of really clear black and white ways in which acupuncture can help with IVF. And then, yeah, not to mention that it's just a complete no man's land for your brain sometimes, particularly that 2 week wait. It can be such a support to have a place that you can go to and lie down for an hour and have someone talk to you and listen to you. Because sometimes, IVF clinics are busy. They don't
Mm.
necessarily have the time to kind of chat to someone if they're feeling up the wazoo about everything that's going on.
Mm.
I think that's a big part, as we've already said, about why it's so beneficial alongside IVF, because it's got that sciencey stuff, it's got the chatting and the support, and then it's got a little bit of the kind of alternative, older traditional stuff that I think when something's been around for so long, people are like, well, it's got to do something. So that's always quite a nice bolster for people.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the difficulty, isn't it, being an acupuncturist, is that we don't have the backing or the funding
Mm,
to do all the scientific studies that maybe the drug companies have, and
mm,
so sometimes I feel like I mean, I don't do this anymore, but it's, you can kind of go into the defensive position of, acupuncture works and, it does this and it does that. And I always say to people, it's hard to quantify because it's hard to do the scientific studies. The
mm,
scientific studies that have been done are really promising. And
mm,
what I always say to people is you have to go and try it for yourself and see
mm,
how you feel, because that is going to give you the best answer of whether you think acupuncture works or not, or whether you think it helps or not. So I don't know about you, but I sort of stopped defending the position of acupuncture quite a long time ago because it's frankly exhausting. And I wish we had, like, as an industry, we had loads of money that we could do some amazing scientific studies, but it's just really, really difficult to do needles and not do needles. How do you have a control group? But I would say most people that we see in clinic get some benefit on some level, like you say, whether it's hormonal, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual, whether it's addressing stress. There is usually some benefit on some level after having the treatment. So that's why it's so fantastic. So when you see people, or if there's somebody listening to this who's thinking about acupuncture and alongside their IVF, when would you say is the best time to start?
Yeah, so in an ideal world, we'd want to see you 3 months before your treatment cycle, really, because that gives us the time to, you know, if we need to make lifestyle changes, it's going to take about 3 months for them to be fully underway. If we want to regulate your hormones, it's probably going to take about 3 months. Sometimes it can be less, but if we give it 3 months, we've got the best shot. Um, Also, the follicles that we are influencing by putting needles kind of around the ovarian area, they are the ones that are going to be ready in 3 months' time. The ones that are already, the ones that are going to be ready this cycle, we can't influence quite as much. So, yeah, in a perfect world, we would like to do it 3 months, but obviously, financials and location and timings just sometimes don't work out. So, even if you're just about to start treatment, that's fine as well, because, there's things like if we're putting needles again in the lower abdomen, we're still going to thicken the endometrium for that cycle and things like that. So there, and again, regulate your nervous system. So ideal world, 3 months, but there is still stuff that we can do throughout and at other times.
Yeah. And when somebody's going through their treatment, so when someone's going through a cycle, a common question we get asked is, what are the key times during your IVF to go for acupuncture?
Yeah. So normally we would like to see you during the follicular development to try and help that and help the endometrial development and all of that. I like after the trigger injection to do a treatment as well. And then when you get to the embryo transfer, so you've had your egg collection, when you get to embryo transfer stage, there's a lot of research about the best thing to do there being do a session just before and do a session just after your embryo transfer. So most people would say that that's kind of on the same day, before and after. I generally think that if you're kind of in the region of 24 hours before and 24 hours after, you're going to be fine. But that is where most of the kind of research about IVF and acupuncture comes from, I believe.
Yeah.
I think the stats are something like it increases your clinical pregnancy rate from 26% to 42%. So it is quite significant.
Mm.
And then also, I think for a number of reasons, the 2 week wait is really important. We can kind of support your implantation and encourage all of that, but also that is generally when people feel the most untethered and freaked out and just unsure what to do. So I always really like to see people in the 2 week wait at least once.
Yeah, because I think the 2 week wait is an interesting one, isn't it? Because often to that point, you've had lots of appointments, you've had blood tests, you've been having scans, you've been having your egg collection, you've been having embryo transfer. So there's a lot of touch points with your clinic. And then you have embryo transfer and, off you pop and you have to wait for 10 days, 2 weeks, depending. And nobody checks in with you during that time from your IVF clinic. You're literally left to ring up when you've done a pregnancy test at home. So, we talk about it a lot, don't we? How difficult it is that time, but it's really great to come and have some treatment because it can just really help calm people down, reduce anxiety, help sleep, improve digestion if they've got digestive issues from the progesterone, that kind of thing. It can be a lifeline, I think, during that difficult time.
Yeah, I agree.
Are there any other times during IVF that you particularly recommend treatment or you like to see people?
Yeah, so I think also post the egg collection can be a really good time to come in, particularly if you're doing like PGTA testing or if you're freezing it and you're kind of going to take a break for a little bit. It can be really good to come in for a bit of a detox almost, get the kind of hormones out of your system, all the medication that you've been going through for a while. Generally, people are quite bloated at that point. They're feeling a bit hit by bus sometimes at that point. So it can be
Mm.
good to just kind of come at that point and basically unwind everything a little bit before your next stages.
Yeah. And what about in early stage pregnancy? So let's say somebody gets a positive pregnancy test. Lots of people ask us, is it safe to come for treatment at that point? I mean, I'm not going to answer the question. You answer the question.
Yeah, so I would always personally recommend weekly up until the 12-week mark. I think it's a crazy time once you've been through IVF because you're very nervous a lot of the time. You're quite anxious. You're not really telling anybody, so you don't really have anybody to talk to about it. So it's nice to have a healthcare professional that you can talk about being pregnant with. So I think it's really good throughout that stage for that. Also, early stages of pregnancy, you don't know what symptoms you're going to start getting, and we can really help regulate if you're getting morning sickness, if you're starting to get constipation, if you're getting pain anywhere. It can be really good for all of those kind of things. And yeah, people are often a bit nervous that it won't be safe because obviously it's needles going in the body. Um, yeah, any acupuncturist knows exactly where they can put needles or not put needles at any point in pregnancy. There are a handful of points that we don't do during pregnancy because we save them till the very end because they induce labor. But nobody would do them in your early stages, and we just do really encouraging, supportive, nourishing stuff that just supports your pregnancy.
Yeah, it's a very gentle treatment, isn't it, in those early stages, those first 12 weeks. But I think exactly like you say, having that touch point of care and a touch point of kind of, someone to listen, have a nice treatment, calm your nervous system it's invaluable, isn't it? And it's a part of our work, I guess, because we're so focused on fertility. We don't often talk too much about the benefits of those early stages. And often people feel like, well, what can they do? Again, it's a bit like the 2-week wait. You're kind of left on
Mm.
your own. You feel very out of control. There's nothing you can do. And obviously, we would never say acupuncture would be the thing that makes your pregnancy successful or not, because, that is down to the embryo, the environment. But what we can say is that we are here to support you, calm your nervous system,
Yeah.
address any anxiety, listen, support. You have a lovely lie down. We can help with any kind of, like you say, constipation, sickness. That's the kind of thing that we can really support you with.
Yeah, and some people aren't they're avoiding their friends for their first 12 weeks because they don't want to give away anything. It's just nice to be able to recognize that you're pregnant and literally say, I'm pregnant to someone.
Yeah. And what about when IVF doesn't work, Bella? What do you say to people when, there's been a failed round of treatment?
Yeah, so I still think that acupuncture is helpful at that point because, there's it can be such a intense drop off after all the hormones and all the excitement and the hope to then get that negative result that again having somewhere where you can feel supported and we can kind of try and process everything can be really good. And then generally in our clinic we'll try and talk about next steps. If you want to make next steps, we can, if we can identify things that have gone wrong, we can send you to the people that we think could help. So yeah, I always think that that's quite an important time to come for treatment as well, because again, you can feel so lost at that point.
Yeah. And it's hard, isn't it? Because often you might have like a 15-minute follow up with your consultant and that's it. And that is, good, considering the investment physically, emotionally, financially, to just end the cycle on, that catch up with your consultant can be quite brutal, can't it?
Yeah, totally.
And we often, if we've worked with somebody for months before and then during their round, we've often built up a real relationship. We go on that journey in some way with those people when we work at that level. So, I always say that we're there no matter what the outcome. We're there to sit in the grief. We're there to sit with the joy, because that is our job. And I guess what we are quite good at doing, well, we're really good at doing it actually, is kind of signposting and guiding people. We don't know the answers, but we
Yeah.
know lots and lots of different approaches, lots of different clinicians, lots of different experts that we can kind of signpost you to help you get more information about what you might do going into the future. If that's, if you want to continue to try, we can be a sounding board for that. So I think people often say that can be quite helpful as well.
Yeah, and I also think sometimes there's been just so much fertility thought through your brain for that, however long you've been doing the prep and the cycles, that it's important to say that if you just want to take a complete break and
Yeah.
not think about it for a while and not even have to talk to us about it, that's fine. And we will be here when you're ready, if you're ready again, if you want to come back. And we don't want to put any pressure on you. We want you to take the time that you need to just sometimes think about something else for a bit.
Yeah. Because it's easy, isn't it, to kind of focus on the positives of IVF and the positive outcomes. And that's, the great rewarding bit of the work. And it's amazing. But I think, the most important bit of our work is when it doesn't go right, because that's kind of the time where we can be there to support them. Because I feel like, okay, you might be offered one counselling session from the clinic, but other than that, that's all that happens. And so it can be very, very easy to feel completely overwhelmed, completely lost. So I always think, yes, it's great to celebrate people's successes, and we might post about an amazing result that we've got, but I really do feel very strongly about, let's face the reality of IVF. Lots and lots of IVF doesn't work. It doesn't work first time. Lots of patients have, at various different stages along the journey, it might not work. They might not get the number of eggs. They might get failed fertilization. There's lots of things that can go wrong. And I think what we can say, hand on heart, is, again, we don't know the answers, but we will be here to care, to support, and to use our needles to kind of do the best that we can for the physical symptoms that happen as a result of that. So I feel like, we should talk about that a bit more, but it's sometimes it's difficult, isn't it, to know how to sort of talk about it without sounding completely pessimistic, because there's always that balance of hope, but a realistic sort of showing of this is what the reality of IVF actually is.
Yeah, I agree.
So Bella, you are changing everything. You're staying with us, but you're changing where you're working and what you're doing, because nothing ever stays the same at Hannah Pern for very long. So tell us, where are you going and what you're going to be doing?
So I will be working in Katie's clinic in Bethnal Green on Mondays, which will be new, which is super exciting. And then I will be moving to doing Wednesdays in Balham.
Yep.
So yeah, really exciting.
Great. So you are basically the not the cheerleader. What do you call it when someone's like pushing out ahead and putting their flag in the sand? You're doing that for the clinic in East London.
Yeah.
Pioneer.
The explorer, yeah.
You are the pioneer for us and our clinic to the east of London.
Yes.
So what I will do is I'll put all your details on the end of this podcast so people can see where you are and people can book in. And, if you are listening to this and you want more information, I'm also going to link the research about IVF and acupuncture, so you can have a look at the studies that have been done. And I'll just put I've got a really good blog about IVF and acupuncture. So there's a lot more information out there. I will also list, because I'm aware lots of people listen to this who aren't in London. So I will also link to the British Acupuncture Council and the Fertility Support Company, where all of the acupuncturists on the Fertility Support Company are specialist trained. It's the qualification that Bella's in the middle of doing. And it's just a very high level of qualifications and experience of people working in the fertility field as acupuncturists. So that if you're looking for somebody who's kind of got that Western medicine experience and the Chinese medicine, then anyone from the fertility support company is going to be very well trained and experienced. So you know that they're good to work with. So I'll put all that information on the end of the podcast. So Bella, congratulations. You have survived your first podcast. How has it been?
It's been good. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it actually. Good once it's going.
Well done you. It's been lovely to talk to you, and thank you so much for coming on and for your time.
Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed listening to this and want to find out more, then come and join my free community in Facebook. We have loads of resources. You can catch up on all our previous webinars and be the first to know about forthcoming events. To sign up, just follow the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to work one-to-one with myself or one of the team, then please see our website, hannahpern.com, where you can book in directly or organise a discovery call to find out how we can support your fertility and your reproductive health.